Hey everybody, it's Paul Ramsey back again with Dr. Manny St. Victor, and
What's up, Paul?
it's good to have you here, man. We're talking about motivation,
Yeah,
we
man.
have been lately anyway, and so we have one final sort of focus area that we want to cover, and that's guilt, shame, and regret,
Yeah, man.
which we've been talking about motivation. It's like, how can you talk about motivation without talking about what's demotivating, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Why do these particular emotional states demotivate people?
They attack your sense of self. And regret, when not used properly, interferes with your development as a human. So each one is a very specific tool. Your brain does it for a reason, and it encodes memories differently based off of that. Um, and I won't. Let's start with shame.
Okay.
Okay, the concept of shame is that I did something, I am a bad person. And it drops your self worth, your self respect, your self esteem. It just makes you feel, like it's something that you can't shake. And it's part of the concept of a fixed mindset. Okay?
Yep.
Now, you take that and you separate that from guilt. And guilt is I did something and I regret the action. So you separate the action from your sense of self. You learn from that situation and you're better off. Now, when you go with guilt instead of shame, you're able to stop doing the thing, still be motivated, keep trying again and again, make lots of mistakes, but not lose your fuel that is self-relevant growth. And you don't feel like your self-esteem and self-efficacy it's in a part of your brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. And when you abuse your sense of self, your VMPFC gives up to your amygdala faster. Remember we did the circuit about that
Right.
months
Yep.
ago. Feels like forever. God. So you want to give yourself the best chance of kind of being motivated and being fueled. Anytime you're using your self-referential system, which we refer to as the default mode network, you're kind of doing damage to your ego. You're hurting yourself. You're criticizing yourself. You're destroying the fuel. And to avoid that, you want to be able to go to guilt. Now, with guilt comes regret. And regret is part of a set of tools called counterfactual thinking. It's it's what if thinking. What if I hadn't done that? What if? And there's two ways to do counterfactuals. You can beat yourself up over it, you know,
Yeah.
uh, or you can use it to worry, which destroys you. Think about all the things that could have possibly happened, and then that's worrying usually about embarrassment, about shame.
Yep. Yep.
Embarrassment is kind of anticipation. Well, fear of embarrassment is sort of like the road to shame. These are all
Yeah.
different negative flavored emotions. Um, the right way to use regret is you do something and you realize you've made a mistake, and then you kind of introspectively you go, okay, how is that related to my core values? You evoke your core values. You look to see if maybe you put a value above another. You look to see if you were directly in opposition to one of your values. You know, and remember, update your core values all the time. Like remind yourself daily because you want them to be very accessible. So you create a
Right.
habit of pulling them up when you're challenged to make a tough decision.
Yeah.
So with regret, what you do is you use regret to set what's called implementation intentions or distraction intentions to prevent to being distracted. Say you're a guy who's having trouble with alcoholism, cocaine, or infidelity. I use those because that's something that often shakers and movers tend to come across those things. You're spending a lot of time in the office, you're not well rested, and you're led into temptation, you're happy hour with the social crew. You want to be able to beat these things with your unconscious mind. So you
Right.
want to set an implementation intention, which is next time I hit the bar with the buddies, I'm going to get seltzer water.
Right.
If I'm offered a drink, then I will do this. When I hit the bar, then I will make a right turn. Those are if thens, and you say them that way, and then you visualize it, and that anchors it so that you're not burning up your cognitive, your conscious thought process with preventing yourself from doing things. You've woven the behaviors into your identity based on using your core values as your ideal,
Okay.
and that helps you fight stereotype threat where whatever society believes you are, it might kind of undermine what you want to be.
Right.
You know, if they say, if you're a girl and they say girls aren't good at math, and you're like, this girl is, you know, or if whatever racial stereotype and you're taking a standardized test and they remind you with the bubbles at the beginning so that your working memory goes down, you're able to rise above that by doing what's top-down definition,
Right.
not environmentally triggered definition. So that's how you use regret.
I find in the work that I do with people, this is why I love talking with you, is that you get me thinking in ways that I don't usually think. Like, you get me to that, like, here's how your brain is firing off level, right? And I tend to, in the work that I do with people, just sort of dwell more in the emotional
Yeah.
stuff, like, you know, like, how's an emotion firing off, not like at the brain level. And I found that when I work with clients who have a lot of guilt or shame or regret, that you know, everything we do meets a need. You
Yeah.
know, we don't do it if it doesn't meet a need.
Yeah.
And that most often when you deal with people who are really dwelling in those states, it's because those states they connect you with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you just sit and you're guilty or shameful, even though it feels awful, you're getting connected with your inner self, and there's some level of like you feel terrible, but you also sort of pity yourself.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's like a maladaptive love.
It's rumination.
Yeah, right.
You
And
just got,
so, you know, if things aren't going well, it's better than nothing. You know, like
yeah.
that's what it ends up being.
Better man than no man at all. Sorry.
Yeah,
One of
no, and that's
those TV shows got me with that.
no, I think that you know, so it becomes it's really a choice, but it's developed in such a way that it's not a conscious choice. Like, you're not saying I think I'll go be miserable now,
Mhm.
but it's a system of like, I get something from dwelling in this emotional state,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
it's lousy still. So eventually people are like, enough's enough, like, get me out of here.
Yeah. And
You know?
that's when you got to put the implementation intentions. When you realize when you're being triggered into your lesser self, into your lizard brain, that's a sign and a half that you're off course.
Yeah.
Shame, guilt, regret, those are all signals. Your emotions are signals. And when you get in touch with your core and you use it as your compass, every step you make is guided by your signal. You're in touch with the earth, you're in touch with the environment, you know, you're in touch with your destiny, and you live like a purpose-driven life, you know?
Yeah.
You head for mastery, you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes, so you get better. You make more mistakes quicker because you keep trying, because you know you're passionate about where you want to go, so you feel the burning passion. You feel the end purpose. You can visualize the end goal.
Right.
It makes it that much easier to get hard things done.
What about though? Let's just backpedal a little bit, Manny. Like, what about when people though are in the state and they just feel like everything you just said is just too insurmountable? Like, let's dial it back a little bit and be like, how do you get the ball rolling? Like, here you are talking about mastery, and I'm
Yeah,
like, if I'm feeling ashamed of myself, I'm not thinking about how I can start getting to mastery, right?
yeah. You're thinking about making the pain go away.
So, how do we help people in a practical sense start to elevate up out of those states into better, healthier, more productive states?
There's two mechanisms. There's mindfulness-based stress reduction. There's variations also, mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance therapy. But all of these things, all they really do is teach you how to spend time with your negative emotions without having them push you over into the behavior. And it's hard. It's hard because you're building up willpower and you're going to fail a lot. You're going to fail a lot. And really, I should even take back the word fail. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to get a lot of feedback. But you can't avoid the feedback. You can't like squint away from the feedback and make the feedback throw your punch off so you don't swing through. You
Right.
have to swing the full swing.
Yeah.
And if you hit the wall or the person's jaw is harder than you thought, and that really hurts on a knuckle, just saying. So you have to pay attention to the whole process and practice like it's for real. You gotta, you don't want to do excuse my français, a half-ass job and then be like, well, I knew it wasn't going to work out anyway. I didn't have enough time. You
Right.
self-sabotaged.
Sabotaging. Yep. Yep.
So you develop a habit of mindfulness of when you're triggered into, arguing with someone who's supposed to be on your team, into quitting a group because you feel as if they were going to kick you out anyway, starting an argument with someone because they pushed a button and you didn't want to hear their feedback. You move towards kind of recognizing your negative emotion, breathing through it, labeling it, which helps decrease some of the tension around it, and then moving towards like separating the emotion from the action, the emotion, the recognition of the emotion from the feeling of the emotion. Because those are
higher order thinking, right? Yeah.
You move to a level of abstraction where you're like, oh, I really want to hit this dude right there, and you're like, you see a little part of him in his chin or a little part of the nose that would like fit really good with the second and third knuckle, because you want to hit with the knuckles that are up. No. I mean, you don't want to hit with the wrong knuckles,
right?
Saying. But so you have to move away from the salient stimulus of you visualizing playing knick-knack paddywhack on someone's chin to, okay, I've backed away to just the emotion, and now the emotion is not attached to behavior.
Right.
And then you have to back up even further to, okay, now I'm looking at alternative behaviors. Then you go out of autopilot, you go out of schema behavior, and you go into choices. And that's what allows you to move from sort of lizard brain to evoking your core values.
Yeah. Some of the things that I like to do with clients in these situations is, and we've talked about this before, so this is nothing new to you, but just so people could think about it, like if you're stuck and you're in a real guilty moment, shameful moment, regretful moment, all of that stuff has its own energy signature, right? Body language wise and stuff. So one way to give yourself a relatively quick state change is to literally move, like get up and move and assume a different physical position, inhabit a different physical space, force yourself into a different alignment so that you can't just keep maintaining the hangdog, guilty, shameful you, Get up.
State space.
Yeah. Get up, get big, get your head up, get your eyes up, expand the chest and breathe more, all that kind of stuff. The other thing I like to do with people is sometimes people get so into their stuff because they're doing the self-connecting thing, and so sometimes just simple as I'll ask a client, I'll say, if your friend came to you the way you are right now and was running these patterns of I'm not good enough and I'm just trying to, what would you say to them?
Yeah.
Right? Because then they have to dissociate from themselves. They have to step out of themselves and pretend to be a different version of themselves talking to their friend.
And by dissociation, you get that.
Yeah. So, that's stuff that you guys can do. I think the first thing is you got to recognize what Manny's talking about. Like, you've got to be able to identify. You got to be able to put your finger on it and say, I'm in one of those moments. And then you may need to do what Manny said and back up and see it from a little bit of a distance and maybe even back up again. And that's a really important part. But if you're struggling, you maybe try some of the stuff that I said as well to help yourself really feel like you're changing your energy and everything. But I always liked, I heard Tony Robbins say once, pain is inevitable and like pain is part of living, but suffering is optional.
Yeah. And there's the neuroscience of that where you remove what's called the affective component of pain. If you stub your toe, okay, you can feel the pain signal. And as a matter of fact, as you know in hypnosis, you can actually feel it as a signal and then not feel the pain. Right. But you don't need to add the hot sauce of you stupid idiot, you stub your toe like you always do, and you'll never be a ballerina because you ate the burger. You don't need to put all that luggage with it. That's the part that is destroying yourself. You separate the affective component. You take the suffering away from the physical pain.